82 points is the current gap between first place and second in Pro. Twardsidlo will be your GT4 champion by the end of tonight, no matter what unfolds on the track. However, the complete opposite story is happening in the AM class right now, as Frank Olsen and Daniel Ricciardo are currently 1 point apart going into today's final round. Hello everybody and welcome back to GT4 Thursdays. My name's Tim Peck. I'm joined today by Jesse Lee on the comms and Christian Stricker as our broadcaster. Jesse, if you're Ricciardo or Olsen right now, what is going through your head?
Well, it's very close, Tim, and hello everybody at home. And it's so close. It's not. It doesn't even matter that there's a point between the two of them. Tonight, it's going to be about who best who. It is that simple. One position is the difference in the championship. It's actually a little bit less than that, but I digress. What's going through my mind if I was in their shoes? I would probably be a nervous wreck if it was me. But if I was them, it's just got to be business as usual. Get the laps in, get a good quali, get out there, have a very clean race, and hope you have just a little bit more special race than the guy you're trying to beat.
Well, we're about to find out just who has the advantage going into today's race at Imola, of course. We've got 10 minutes of qualifying now, and qualifying will determine the starting position for both races here. There is no reverse grid or race grid order for the second race, which means for both Ricciardo and Olsen right now, it is very important that they are placed above the other simply so that they've got the advantage going into each race. But Jesse, I mean, with 10 minutes of qualifying to go, and a dry track now, as it was raining earlier, what do you think is going to happen here? I mean, we've seen a lot of the time in this championship, we've had a lot more cars on track than this. We've been averaging about 35 to 40, and now we're down to 23. People are going to have a lot more space. Do you think that means we're going to see a lot more battling, qualifying, a lot more position switching, or do you think it's going to be a similar story of just try and get that one perfect lap in?
I think here it's very imperative. Imola in a GT4 car seems to take an age to get around here. I think it's very important you set your banker lap and you set the one other quick lap. It's so easy to, Tim Peck, to invalidate your lap around here, even in a GT4 car. So I say you're probably going to get 2, maybe 3 bites at the cherry, but that's probably all you're going to get in this session.
It certainly is a difficult track to navigate, as I believe the 225 car there actually had a bit of an accident going through the first chicane. So already you can see cars just struggling to get grip on the track. I mean, the track's green, Jesse, qualifying's just started. Everyone's just trying to find their feet again. And I think it's going to be a very tight session. One thing I have noticed is, despite the fact that Twardsidlo is looking very, very comfortable coming into this race in terms of points, I've noticed that during the practice, those top positions in the pro class, I mean, they kept changing up every single second. I saw Verstappen at the top, de Havilland was at the top, we even had Boardman up there. There's a real mix of people fighting, so going into this, I'd say the Porsche looks like the dominant car, but in terms of who looks like the dominant driver, well, it could go anyone's way today.
It really could. It could be a day that you look back on and smile. It could also be a day that you look back on and realize that one simple mistake, it could be here in qualifying or in either of the twin 20-minute races to follow. But you never know. You just have to not think about it. That's the biggest thing about putting pressure on yourself in a championship situation is you can't. I mean, you will do regardless. Any driver that tells you, well, I'm completely calm, I'm not thinking about it, is lying to you. But the thing is, you have to be able to use that to your advantage and be focused in your driving. That is what's important here, and it all starts with the qualifying session here. On top of that, we were expecting, this is the other elephant in the room, Tim Peck, we were expecting pretty much a deluge here today. We were talking about it pre-race, about it being very wet, clearly qualifying in the dry on a very green track, so hopefully the track will improve a little bit before the end of the session, which should make the pole time fight a little bit spicy in both classes. But we were expecting rain. We haven't got any to speak of.
Funny you mentioned that, Jesse. The first time I ever commentated was actually here at Imola, and the situation we had then was it rained the entire way through qualifying, but then by the time the race rolled around, the rain had stopped. But one thing that had stayed was the water on the track, and we saw different tyres all over the grid. People could decide whether they wanted to start on the wets to get through the damp stage or whether they wanted to start on the dries. Now, looking back on that race, I think it's very clear that the dry tyre was the tyre to go on. Of course, you did have to suffer through the first couple of minutes of the race while the track was really, really wet, and there was a lot of sliding around, but it meant that you got to avoid that pit stop. So for any of the drivers that were originally in that race, they'll be definitely happy that they do not have to be thinking through that today. As you can see, Kozlowski's just come across the line. They've set the first time of a 1:52.9, so that's a very strong time straight off the bat here. Kozlowski's going to be hard to beat, and they were looking like one of the much stronger ones during the practice. Of course, Kozlowski's had a couple of very, very good races so far. Now we've got a couple more drivers coming over the line. Towards Zidlow's set their time. They're just 2/10 off their teammate ahead of them. So they've got a bit more of time to find there if they want to start ahead of Kozlowski. But of course, it doesn't matter for them as Boardman puts in a 1:52.3. That is 6/10 ahead of Kozlowski, Jesse. And this is basically what I was saying. It could go anybody's way.
No, you're absolutely right, and it probably will be. I don't think that's a safe lap time for Boardman, as impressive as it is. I don't think we're going to end quali on a green track. I think we'll get some rubber put down here, and even if it does stay green, the track will be cleaner for the final runners. This is a case of wanting to be the last car before the clock strikes 0 across the stripe. I think that's going to be very important. Christoph Verstappen coming to the line here. This should put him on the board, and does, all the way up to second, and now down to third. De Havilland now up into second place, very close at the top, but then again, we expected that here today.
I mean, we've not seen a lot out of that Chevrolet this season, Jesse, and well, de Havilland certainly look very comfortable so far today. They've slotted themselves in second, just 300ths behind Boardman. So, like you said, that lead, it may be a great lap from Boardman, but it could go at any point in time. Now, we've only got 4 minutes left of qualifying, Jesse, and seeing as most times here are going to be around that 1:53 mark, you're only really getting in 2 more laps now, maybe that third one if you're lucky and you time it right going across the line. So you don't have a lot of time left to improve, and I can guarantee you that most of these drivers won't get 2 shots here. They'll probably only get the one, as I can guarantee one of those laps is bound to go wrong, whether they meet a bit of traffic or they just slide a little bit going to a corner. You don't usually continuously keep getting those hot chances at a lap here. So I think it's going to become very tight in the next few laps. Of course, Boardman is still on provisional pole. That 1:52.3 has been good enough so far to keep them in that position. But a lot of drivers are very close to him, as Kazmierski comes across the line, the first person to get into the 151s, and that puts the BMW on top.
And that might be the high water mark to beat for some of these other cars. I think it's still doable, though, but for Kazmierski, that is an excellent lap in the BMW and a definite mark to beat. Can Andy Boardman do it? How about Matthew Kingston Lee, the best name in sim racing? To this day, I don't know if he knows that I do that joke every single week. But either way, I digress. 7th place, a 52.965 for Kingston Lee in the 555. Puts him nicely up inside the top 10. John Schultz here in the Alpine, looking to improve, and certainly is on the Delta.
Well, we'll see what they can do here. They're currently on a very, very good lap right now. I'm just watching their Delta like I'm sure you were, and they're 5/10 up on their previous time. They do have a couple more corners to deal with here, but as long as they can get the flow right coming through these last 2 corners, Jesse, this will be a very good lap time that will put Schultz very far up that leaderboard. Should slot them in, I believe, in that top 10 as well. So if Schultz can get that Alpine up there, they're looking at a very good chance in this race. Of course, again, I think for a lot of these drivers, Jesse, it's just about starting as high up as possible. You don't necessarily need to start right at the top, but as high up as possible to give yourself that extra bit of advantage over the people you're fighting in the championship. That is going to be the key for a lot of these drivers here.
No, it sure is. Schultz just missing out on the top 10, a 53.462. Jordan Daly the driver holding on to that spot for the moment. Boardman coming to the line. Is this good enough to retake pole position? We're shortly going to find out. It was not. It was a definite improvement by a few tenths. A 52.107 further distances himself from third place de Havilland, but Boardman needs another 2 tenths to take pole from Kazimierski. And where is Tordzidlo? Here he is, Tordzidlo in the 373 in an unfamiliar spot for himself and us. Only 10th place so far.
This person, Jesse, doesn't even have to drive today if they don't want to. They've already won just by showing up. Of course, they have done so well in the previous 4 races, scoring maximum points in 3 out of the last 4. So they're very well set up for today. They're on a very good lap right now as well, which puts them into pole position. Another 151.9, just 8 thousandths of a second quicker than Kazimierski. So Tordzidlo, despite not having to show up today, is definitely here to make their mark.
Well, he sure did, and he just about got it done. 8 1,000ths of a second, folks. The difference between pole and outside pole here today. Does Kazimierski have, I don't know, a little blip of the throttle difference in it to get that pole position back? We'll find out. Damian Lowe goes 15th quickest there, and that made that fight for the AM, or lower split pole, very close indeed. 2 100ths of a second in that case between Olsen and Lowe. Ricciardo, of course, and Olsen fighting for that championship. They'll start first and third if everything stays line astern here. Phil Roberts in the 225 looking to improve just a bit. And I believe we've just had one car exit the circuit a moment ago. We had 23 cars, and now we only have 22. Phil Roberts trying to get out of the basement, and does. Big improvement. 53.120 for Phil Roberts. Now that's a nice pickup, and the Ginetta is a Digby car team. But I will tell you, the track did go fast near the end of that session, Tim Peck, and that is going to pretty much assure most people are going to pick up here, like Kingston Lee, who went P6.
Jesse, we really quickly need to talk about what's happening down below. But first, we're going to mention Verstappen putting in an astonishing lap. A 151.5. Tordzidlo's just taken it, Jesse. A 151.3 almost instantly after Verstappen thought they'd surely secured pole with that time. Tordzidlo comes in and steals pole position. Both drivers are looking very hot today, and they will be 2 to watch at the front as they battle it out. Now, of course, Verstappen can't take the championship from Tordzidlo anymore, but they will be looking to show Tordzidlo what they can do. So far, I've always seemed on the back foot this championship, but hopefully for them, not today. So these are the results of qualifying. You've got Tordzidlo currently on pole position. Verstappen will start second, and Kazimierski will start in third place in the BMW. Boardman will also start fourth. So those top 4 drivers all have been very prominent in the championship so far, Jesse, and are a big one to watch. Now, the story I wanted to talk about is what's happening down in AM right now as Redford takes pole in the Alpine. They will be starting at the highest they have started so far in this championship. Olsen will be in second. They have the 1-point advantage, Jesse, going into these races. And then Dilo will start in third, which we'll talk about in a minute after we've looked at the standings. So these will be your standings for today's race. Of course, Tordzidlo leads by 82 points in the Pro Class. Kozlowski will be in second. They're fighting Ertan, who's just 2 points behind right now. Kazimierski in fourth is 2 points ahead of Streppen in fifth. Boardman, they're in sixth currently, and Jackson's down in seventh. Jordan Daly in eighth is 3 points ahead of de Havilland, and Matthew Kingston Lee, the best name in sim racing, is currently in the top 10.
I like what you did there.
Henry Fuhr, they're currently in the 11th. They'll be looking to push themselves into the top 10, but will need to get a significant lead to do so. Neil Pimlott, they're currently 12th, and Vasiliev is tied for points with them. Tom Bryant, they're tied for points with Stevenson behind. They're both fighting for 14th currently. Phil Roberts, they're in 16th. Billy Octane, 1 point behind 17th. Rob Franken is in 18th. They are looking to score double digits today, and John Schultz just behind them will be looking to overtake them. They're in 19th, and Botier will round out the top 20. And these are your drivers that are no longer in the championship.
Boy, oh boy, the AM Championship is alive and well, folks. Either way you cut it, it's 1 point up top. Frank Olsen holds the advantage right now over Daniele Ricciardo, but it is so very tangible. And will that change in 2 races today? Simon Watton a little bit further behind in third place with 95, 15 in front of Miska Suminen, who was the car who left and rejoined, by the way. So we do still have 23 on the grid as far as I know. Joe Gleason, who had flashes of brilliance in this championship and heartbreak a week ago, not with us, out on maneuvers, but he will stay at 78. And that gives Yaroshenko a chance with 56 points to jump up inside the top 5. And Redford as well can do some serious damage from his starting spot today on 53 points. Damian Lowe, pretty much the same story as Redford, 46, very close as well. Ivan in 9th place, 29. Max Power rounds out your top 10 with 23 points. A lot of close fighting between the top 10 there. Outside the top 10, it looks a little bit like this. A lot of retirements from the championship thus far, but Martin DeBont, the lone driver on the second page here, who has a fighting chance.
10 seconds.
Well, Jesse, it's interesting you mentioned that because De Bont there had the exact same amount of points as the person in 10th place. So technically, all of the AM drivers are currently in the top 10, despite there being 11 scoring points. But one thing, Jesse, I do want to talk about quickly before the race starts is the starting order we have in AM right now. Not only is Redford on pole for the first time in this championship for AM, Olsen, the current championship leader by 1 point, is just behind him in second. Ricciardo, who is challenging Olsen, finds themselves down in 4th in their split. But Jesse, let's think back to the past couple of races. How often have we seen one AM driver place up in around 11th with a nice buffer of about 4 of the pro cars between them? That is not the case here today at Imola. Currently, apart from Tom Bryant slotting himself in the middle in 17th, every single AM driver is next to each other on the sheet. That is going to make Olsen and Ricciardo's fight close from the race start.
Yeah, it's a very good point. We got so used this season to having people in between the AM field. It didn't break up the action realistically, but it did create a lot of questions of how the pro drivers were going to race the lower split. But today, not really that issue. And also Olsen and Ricciardo, the two were focusing on that 82 and the 931.
Well,
I do apologize there. Very loud background noise there. But what I was saying was Olsen and Ricciardo are the people we're watching here today. And we've seen it go both ways all season long, Tim Peck, between Olsen and Ricciardo. Olsen get involved in an accident. Ricciardo takes the lead. Ricciardo have an issue. Olsen's there to pick up the pieces. The winner of this championship today might just be the driver that ends up being in the best position, that has the most luck as well. And you hate for a championship to come down to luck, but let's face it, racing is kind of partly luck.
there's definitely a great deal of luck involved and a great deal of not having the commentators curse you involved as well. So I'm going to do my best today not to ruin the race for Olsen and Ricciardo. Of course, Gleason faced the full brunt of my curse last week as he got mentioned twice by me, and then in both races ended up meeting his fate to mechanical issues. So hopefully won't be having an effect on the fight between Olsen and Ricciardo today. But it's an interesting point that you brought up, Jess Lee, in the fact that a lot of their championship fight so far this season has been purely down to which one of them has stayed on the track throughout the entire race. And I think that is really what's happened the entire time in this AM split. We've seen a lot of the time one of the drivers has had a bit of a misfortune on the track. That isn't even necessarily their fault, but it has been what has caused them to drop points in a race. So today I'd say what's most important for both Olsen and Ricciardo is just make sure you stay on the track here and try not to lose too many places. Of course, finishing high up is important as well, because then you'll have the edge over your opponent. And I agree, Jesse. I think it's going to come down today into which of them can just stay on the track and keep consistent. Of course, you've got 2 races as well, so they've got that to worry about too. If Ricciardo does really well in this first race, they still have to make sure they do well in the second race as well. Well, we're about to find out exactly how race 1 is going to go as we're approaching the line right now. You can see all of the drivers about to cross the line, and well, they're about to go as well, Jesse. Verstappen already looking for a way here through towards Zidlo. You can see them just trying to get exactly in line with them before they're allowed to go, and now you can see them accelerating. It's a long way up the straight here before you can go at Imola, and they're already off because Mirski's had a brilliant exit. They look like they're going to try and take Verstappen down here into the first corner as they go for the inside, and they're going to keep Verstappen as tight as they can through that first chicane. Of course, a little tap will send Kazminski off track, but Kazminski's now rejoining him. Borman's going to try and reset on the track, but that's going to cause trouble behind his cars are trying to avoid them. And you can see the chaos that's now unfolding as several cars are going to be either off track or hitting the wall, of course. That is not how you want to start the race here for a lot of these people. We're going to see if either Olsen or Ricciardo got caught up in that. I'm being told by our broadcast that Ricciardo was caught up in that. So that is not the ideal start to race 1 for Ricciardo, but it's also not an ideal start for anyone up ahead as well, Jesse. And for a second there, I thought Kazminski had it, and then they had that little tap with Verstappen, and well, trouble was spelt from then on, Jesse Lee.
Well, of course, it was already commentator's curse. You congratulated Michael Redford, and he, of course, was on pole in the AM class and had to start from the pit lane for one reason or another. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but he asked you not to jinx him, and if that was a non-voluntary start from pit lane, I reckon you've done it in record time, Tim Peck. But absolutely crazy start there, as just absolutely no luck for Andy Boardman. Had a really good starting spot here, and basically just gets turned and in front of the entire field nonetheless. A lot of cars involved. Oh, a little bit of bumpy there. A little slow through there was maybe the leader of the race. And that's another thing I want to touch on real quick, Tim. Nobody cares that Tor Zidlo is trying to win this championship or has won this championship. If anything, him pretty much locking up this pro championship has made everyone care a little bit less. Around the outside, late braking maneuver by Porsche. It's a fair fight. Porsche up front. Around the outside in the 718. Are you absolutely insane, man? He almost made it work. They're side by side. Will they go 3 wide? Kazimirski thinks about it. Voss back in line. Still side by side for the lead. Verstappen and Tor Zidlo ran the same lap. Here comes Tor Zidlo, but Verstappen has the position. He's got out in front. Around the outside, Kazimirski trying to take the position away. De Havilland in the picture now. Run away, Christoph Verstappen. Get out of Dodge as Kazimirski and Tor Zidlo are side by side. Kazimirski takes Tor Zidlo. What can de Havilland do? Incredible stuff around the outside twice. He got it done. How can he do that? I can't do that. How'd he do that?
Just because Verstappen's not fighting for the win in the championship today does not mean they're not going to show Tor Zidlo exactly what they can do. And Jesse, this is what we've been boiling up to all season. We've watched these two scrap it out at the front the entire time, as we're now watching Kazminski and try and take on Verstappen. As Tor Zidlo behind is trying to hold off de Havilland, who looked like they were going for a move there. They're now flashing towards it, though. Not sure if something happened.
Kazimirski's in the lead, isn't he?
Kazminski's in the lead. When did that happen? I didn't even notice that happen, but Kazminski is now in the lead. Verstappen looking to find their way through Kazminski. I tell you what, Jesse, that all changed in the space of about 4 corners as Verstappen did what I think was a very daring but amazing move around the outside towards Zidlo, who was then vulnerable to Kazminski, who just, they had the line. They could do whatever they wanted around the outside towards Zidlo, and that in turn has now helped them to get ahead of Verstappen. And I've got to say, I think, aside from that first corner, this has been so far some of the best racing we have seen all season.
I'm still trying to work out how Verstappen broke so much later than Tor Zidlo did to get that position. His job, but that's technically turn 2, mind you, all at home. The confidence he had braking into turn 2, knowing that I can brake way later and still turn into the corner. The position was not yielded by Tor Zidlo, but he was given room, and that's what caused that. And unfortunately for Torzidlo, it opened a floodgate there for a second, and somehow Kazimirski has gotten past Verstappen for the lead of this race, but it's a dive! It's a dive by Verstappen down to the inside. That's going to send Kazimirski super wide, and here comes Torzidlo again. Torzidlo back in front of the lead of this race as they go through Aqua Minerale. Absolutely breathtaking stuff we're seeing between these three competitors.
Verstappen there feels like they may have been a little too harsh on Kazimirski, so we'll be letting them back through before this very tight chicane here. But I think it's a nice thing to do. I don't think Verstappen necessarily did anything wrong, but they did tap a little bit going into that corner, which is why Kazimirski went so wide. I imagine that's why Verstappen has let them back through, but they, in the process, had to let Torzidlo through as well, which means Verstappen now has to repeat all of this, Jesse, all over again. But I tell you what, they have looked on form since the start of this race. I would not be surprised if Verstappen continues to attack both Kazimirski and Torzidlo for the entire race as it continues. We're now watching from the rear wing of Torzidlo as Kazimirski closes in behind. The power of that BMW on the straight is very, very strong, but I'm not sure Kazimirski's going to be able to do too much here. They're not going to be quite caught up enough before they get to the corner, and as Christian has just mentioned to me in my ears, they are teammates still as well, so Kazimirski not going to be looking to do anything too dangerous to ruin Torzidlo's race. But that does not mean they won't be fighting. We have seen some of these carbon sim sort drivers absolutely batter each other on track, but Verstappen, not part of the carbon sim sport, does now have to find his way back through, as it looks like he's trying to find something on Kazimirski going through the corner here. Not going to be able to find anything yet, but he's closing in, and I don't think he's going to wait, Jesse. Having watched this race so far, if Verstappen even sees a slight chance of there being a gap, he's going to take it, and he's going to make that gap bigger.
Well, if you do see any big red numbers or letters out to the side of the scoring pylon tonight, those are all ACC assigned penalties, no live stewarding on Thursday. In fact, a lot of the stewarding team in this championship here at RCI. So all of that considered, there might be some post-race squabbling going on, but for right now, it is a dogfight out there for all of the podium positions. Incredible stuff. We haven't seen anything like this all season long. Matthew Kingston Lee holds on to the 7th place position and is now putting pressure on the 123 here of Jackson. Phil Roberts going for a move down here on the inside. Can't quite keep it in there on Henry. And Henry drives away unscathed. Olsen has a decent lead now in the lower class over, well, low. And Suminen, who I think started shotgun on the field, is now up to 3rd in that class. Kazimirski driving off the track there. That might give Verstappen a little shot down this straightaway here. Defensive line for Kazimirski. And here's Verstappen. Will we see another late braking maneuver? No, we will not. Slotting back in single
Go for
file.
the switchback.
A little bit slow through the chicane. Verstappen now again on the outside. You can pass around the outside if you pin the car on the inside, and that's exactly what he's done here. It might be two very different cars, but a nice fight between the two. Verstappen, this will become the inside before it becomes a left-hander again. Will this be enough to hang it on the inside? A little bit of fender rubbing there, and that, in my opinion, completely fair as they go single file for Aqua Minerale again. Brilliant racing.
I agree with you, Jesse. I think it's completely fair there. Of course, Verstappen did go off track, but that was nothing to do with Kazimirski. Just a bit of aggressive racing. And it's what I really love to see is Kazimirski cuts off Verstappen just before the corner. Verstappen's still going to go for it. They went to see if they could get the move down the inside. They are going to collide. That's going to spell the end of their battle as you see Kazimirski completely off track here. Let's just have a race replay, see exactly what happened here. I mean, Kazimirski cuts right in front of Verstappen. Verstappen has to swing out at the last second. I'm not even sure whether Verstappen can really be at fault here, because I think, honestly, in cutting Verstappen off that late, Jesse, I don't think they gave Verstappen too many options of when to brake, and I think that's going to be, for me, I think there's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. I'm not 100% sure I can really pin blame on Verstappen for spinning out Kazimirski there, because Honestly, I'm not 100% sure how much time Verstappen really had to slow down, but that is going to be a bit of a knock for Kazmirski as they find themselves now in 8th place. Boardman currently trying to hold off Henry Fwirt. Fwirt is right on the rear of Boardman. In fact, I'm sure they were touching for a second there. Will drop back slightly before the first corner. I think that's slightly wise, because if they don't break at the same time, then Fwirt is going to meet the rear of Boardman, getting ever so close again there, Jesse. But well, I tell you what, it's been some exciting fighting so far and some very, very close racing. It looks like Roberts is now looking for a move on Fwirt behind. They've ducked into the inside of the Ginetta. Is a Digby car. Well, we'll see just how much of a Digby car it is as it goes through the corner and loses grip. Will not have enough time to get their speed up on the straight and overtake Fwirt there, but a brilliant defense of Fwirt having to come off the attack to make sure that Roberts doesn't get through. Well, Jesse, we're seeing a lot of fighting today.
Wow. Question from the chat, we sir has asked. Just come back. Did I miss anything? Yes, you missed everything. You're going to have to, in the interim, replay the first 2 minutes of this race. Absolutely insane. Jordan Daly back in the 19th place position. I suspect he was the car that got just about the worst of that Andy Boardman spin.
They started from the pits.
Off of turn 4. Oh, they started from the pit lane.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was the 697 and the 95 who started from pit lane. Meanwhile, Kazimierski trying to pick up the pieces, as it were, get some of these positions back. A little bit of contact there, no big deal. But unfortunately, it's going to be Rob Franken's corner. But a nice drive off the corner for Kazimierski, and this might be and is all she wrote off the final turn. So a consolation prize for Arthur in that particular battle as they continue to march up to the front. I'm Tim Peck. I'm going to reserve judgment of that contact for second place. I felt like it was coming, though. I will tell you that. You don't race that hard and that close together for that many laps and go that close and side by side for that many corners without something coming up. And unfortunately, it all ended in tears there. Boardman doing much the same as Kazimierski, trying to pick up the pieces here. This race for 10th place. That was a little bit of a bump. Very clearly quicker off the corner was Boardman off of Pimlott, but unfortunately now it has Henry going up the inside. And you're talking about Henry getting a little close and personal with Boardman. Well, Henry has to, because Phil Roberts is pressuring Henry now.
I think we've seen it a lot on those corners there, the Villeneuve corners. I think that's basically what we just keep seeing on repeat, Jesse, is the car that's actually attacking backs off on the brakes earlier so they get that better exit. But of course it means if they can't find the room, they're just going to be almost hitting the rear of the car in front, which is exactly what we saw with Boardman and Pimlott there. And then you see what happens with Henry Fwirt afterwards, where they've just got the easy run up around the outside of Boardman because Boardman's lost all their speed trying not to hit Pimlott ahead. And I think that's what we've seen a lot of this race, is we see Roberts there has to go wide coming out of the chicane. There's so many cars close together right now, Jesse Lee, and I agree with you with what we were saying about the fight for second place. It was something that we definitely saw coming. Is Boardman being let through here by Fwirt? No, he's certainly not. Fwirt is still going to be defending this corner. Holds the inside and will push Boardman to the outside there. Looked ever so slow, but I think that was just my eyes playing tricks on me, Jesse. They're now back onto the straight, and Boardman wants their 11th place back. They will be looking to try and make a move here. You can see them getting ever so close to the rear of the Chevrolet. It looks like they've got a really good exit out of the last corner, which is going to put them very good place. They're already through by the time we even make it to this first chicane here, Jesse. It has a decent line coming through. Did slide a little bit, which will mess up their exit a tiny bit, but it looks like Henry had their own problems too. And that will be the overtake for Boardman. Can now turn their attention to Pimlott again and will be hoping to not do a repeat of what they did before on this corner.
If I'm Henry Fwirt, I'm absolutely frustrated right now. I did all that work to get that pass on Boardman, and Boardman just drives around me on a straightaway in an Alpine, of all things. How's that for justice? Klazowski now in 4th place, has caught the back of de Havilland. De Havilland has fallen off of Verstappen, but Tord Zidlo has a 2-second lead out in front. But this, the closest battle near the front. De Havilland defending Klazowski, the 57 and the 8 respectively, going to what will be the outside. for the chicane. They will get side by side here. Nope, they figure it out single file before they get there. Probably the smartest decision, but here's another Carbon Sim Sport car. Jackson behind them. What will Jackson's agenda be here? Will they allow Klazowski and de Havilland to resolve their issues? Probably not. There's rarely ever team orders in ACC racing, I've noticed recently.
Yeah, I think there really is the team orders. Of course, everyone's free to fight for their own position. I think the Carbon Sim Sport, though, in particular, do have that extra bit of respect for each other. So whilst I think Jackson might necessarily not have an order to just leave them be, I think they'll definitely respect the fact that they can't just stick their nose in there and cause a problem for Klazowski. Like, if they spin Klazowski out, that is going to be a tough conversation to have, I imagine. Is Klazowski looking to do what Verstappen did earlier on in the race, tries to go around the outside of de Havilland into the first chicane, not going to find it quite the same, doesn't commit to it quite as much. De Havilland will continue to hold on to this final podium position, has got 4 minutes left to do so, as Jackson and Klazowski again ever so close to each other. I thought that was going to be them touching, but Pimlott here is currently leading a pack of 4 cars, all fighting for position behind. And I mean, well, Pimlott might be calm right now, but Boardman certainly isn't. Schultzman makes contact with Fuart. Both Schultz and Fuart are going to be going off track. Fuart managed to hold it together, but Schultz now facing the wrong way. Well, Jesse, I believe Schultz was leading going into this fight, so something's clearly gone wrong here for John Schultz, and they find themselves just stuck on the chicane as Fuart actually takes a little bit too much curb, doesn't have control of the car there, will not have enough wheels on the ground, and will hit Schultz. So not an ideal situation there for the Alpine driver. But, oh, what's happening here, Jesse? I think one car's just gone for a bit of a spin. I believe Kazmierski's hit Kingston Lee. And, well, I think that could have spelled a little bit more trouble. But luckily for the cars ahead fighting for that podium position, didn't quite get caught up in the 6th place fight.
Just absolutely incredible scenes here. The final 2 races of the season, mind you, this is the season finale. And of course, we have one more 20-minute race to come. And what will that do for the drivers that started this race up front with Verstappen and Kazimierski? Will we see a reversal of fortune, perhaps, between those drivers? And what are their tempers like after that? And even in this battle here, what are going through all of these drivers' minds as we have almost exhausted the 20-minute race for race number 1 today. And it has been just about as action-packed as any race that we've had all season long. And Olsen looking to, we cannot have this get lost in the plot, but Olsen has just been dominant in the lower split here and has done such a good job of running a clean race. And of course, I talked about it in the pre-race. It is so easy to have your race dictated by luck, as contact there between Kingston Lee and Kazimierski. Kingston Lee absolutely having none of it.
Well, Kingston Lee just wants to defend the 6th place they've picked up from Kazmierski, having an accident earlier on, but that's only going to fuel Kazmierski even more to try and get through as quickly as possible. Of course, Kazmierski made contact with Verstappen earlier, hence why they find themselves currently down here in 7th place, looking to climb quicker than ever. Klazowski is currently trying to hold off not 1, but 2 of the Carbon Sim Sport drivers, really trying to hold off Jackson here, Klazowski, as they try and find their way through. De Havilland has got a lot on their plate right now, really showing us the extent of what this Chevrolet can do. I mean, you've got the orange Chevrolet, Jesse, you've got the 2 Carbon Sim Sport drivers right behind him. He's got a lot on his plate right now, and with Klazowski and Jackson, it's certainly not an easy defense to make. Both of those drivers are very good overtaking as Kazmierski goes down the inside of Kingston Lee here, will be finding themselves up into 6th place. Will be another Carbon Sim Sport driver to join the fight for 3rd.
Couple of cars racing in front here. Klazowski trying that move around the outside again of de Havilland. It hasn't worked thus far, but we did see Verstappen do this earlier towards Zidlow. Will we see the same thing around the outside? Klazowski, no, doesn't have the overlap, and de Havilland closes the gap. But that Chevrolet does not look planted at all, and that 718 Porsche does. Look at this defensive line to the left and then going back to the center of the racetrack. Not a full move back across the track, mind you. but still enough to make the point made that de Havilland is not having any of this. This is the fight for the final podium spot in the penultimate race of the championship. But what I was saying earlier, Olsen has not put a foot wrong in this race, doing exactly what is necessary. And of course, a lot of times it's about luck, a little bit about not getting involved in an accident. Ricciardo got involved in an accident here in this race. Could also talk about reversal of fortune. What will the second race have in store for us? Not over yet, and it's not over yet for this place here. Rob Franken and Andy Boardman going at it. These two close competitors that know each other. They've raced each other for the better part of a year or more at least that I'm aware of, and that was very close stuff down at Aqua Minerale. And lesser drivers, that would have been a big accident.
Well, you've currently got Pimlott fighting for it behind. They're going neck and neck into the corner here as it looks like there's been an accident. Boardman has spun out Franken. That's going to see Franken drop to the back of this pack and possibly further. But, well, we're going to watch Torzidlo now come across the line. Has led from, well, I would say start to finish. Not quite. There was a lot of racing with Verstappen earlier, but we'll get an advantage that gives them enough of a gap to hold off Verstappen. Torzidlo will be the winner of race 1 here at Imola. Verstappen will come in second, and we'll have to wait to find out who comes on the podium. Well, it's going to be de Havilland followed by Kozlowski and then Jackson. De Havilland managed to pull off, Jesse, the 12-minute defense. Well, about to cross the line now is Henry Fleur. And, well, we're going to have a drag race first of all. This is Tom Bryant fighting, I believe so, Minion to the line. That may have actually been Franken instead. Tom Bryant will be the first person to get over the line. It's Pimlott and Bryant. I've got that wrong twice, Jesse. Pimlott will beat Tom Bryant over the line, will find themselves in 12th place. Olsen in the Amstel will have a race win. That's going to give them a very good points barrier to this person here, Daniele Ricciardo, just coming across the line now in 20th. Did not have the race that they wanted, but there is a race too, Jesse. We've got 20 more minutes. We are returning to the qualifying order. It's all to play for in this race too, Jesse, and there's some drivers here who have got a long, long way to go.
There sure is. The results from race 1 confirmed and the damage done in the lower split championship. Olsen has a decent lead, but you know as good as I do, Tim, if it can happen to Ricciardo, it can happen to Olsen too. And it's all about being in the right place at the right time, or more apt, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if that is what decides that championship, if I'm Daniele Ricciardo, I am absolutely gutted. But one race, get everything you can if you're Ricciardo and hope for the best. Torzidlo, by the way, just returning to form. A nice win over Verstappen, who did start to catch him near the end of that race just a little bit, but only a 20-minute race, I am afraid. But speaking of Verstappen, that was some very argy-bargy racing between him and Kazimierski. What do you think race 2 is going to be like?
I think we're going to have the exact same thing again. I've said it plenty of times before about Verstappen, and I'll continue to say it. Verstappen, for me, is one of, if not the best, at the close combat racing. They have no fear going through any of these corners. They constantly find the gap that they want to quickly and will always be putting pressure on the car ahead. And they're also really good at defending that position, Jesse, once they get it. I would not be surprised if we watch Verstappen fight until their last breath over that line. Has done a phenomenal job so far, and I think what we're going to see in this race too is what they were trying to do in race 1, which is take the fight towards Idlo. I mean, this is the final race of the season. If you look back across the races we've had so far, especially the first 2, which was Verstappen versus Torzidlo for the most part of it, the entire story was who'd have the edge. Torzidlo basically spent the whole 20 minutes fighting off Verstappen, and I think it's just going to continue. I think we're going to wrap up the season the exact way it started. And I'd have it no other way, Jesse. This is the sort of racing I love, and so far it has been brilliant. My biggest question now is, what can Kazmierski do? Obviously, they had a very good start to race 1, had a couple of problems that saw them fall all the way back into 8th place, and we're going to see whether they can bring the fight to Verstappen again, whether they'll be able to get a better position. They'll, of course, be starting 3rd once we put them all back into their qualifying order here. So I think there is a lot to go off here, Jesse, and a lot that can happen. And, well, I do have one question for you, and that is, if we go back to the same thing we talk about every single week, which is one race is the calm race and one race is the chaotic race. I mean, where do you place that? Because at first glance, I'd say, oh, that's 100% the chaotic race. But, I mean, other than the first lap and that lap towards the end, I'd say that was fairly calm in the grand scheme of what we can see some of the GT4s do. And apart from the fairly aggressive racing, I think it was all clean enough to call it a calm race.
No, absolutely not. Have you lost your ever-loving mind, Timpact? That was not calm at all. It was relatively organized, I'll give you that, but it was not calm. The problem, though, is this is the last race of the season coming up. Final 20 minutes. Some of these drivers likely have a score to settle with themselves and potentially, based on the results of that race, other drivers. It is going to be absolute chaos in race number 2. Folks, wake up, Grandma. Take the phone off the hook. We're about to turn this up to 11.
Well, I can think of a couple of drivers who will want to be doing a lot better going into race 2. Boardman will be returning to their 4th place position. That will give them a striking chance at the podium yet again. Of course, Boardman, we saw fall back on lap 1, where they had to try and collect the spaces throughout the race. We'll be hoping that that isn't the case this time. And I think it's going to be said for a lot of those drivers. I mean, I'd say, Jesse, honestly, from 3rd place down to about, well, 10th really, any one of them could take that final podium spot. That's assuming, of course, Verstappen and Tortilla at the front, which there's no telling they will be. We've seen several times in this championship so far, both Verstappen and Tortilla drop into the main pack. And I think for me, race 2 is going to be dictated by that first set of corners. Yet again, it's still going to come down to what happens going into corners 2 and 3. If there is a incident, well, who's going to be the one that suffers from it and who's going to benefit? And that's going to really change it up this entire race. Going to the conversation we were having at the beginning, Olsen versus Ricciardo. Well, Ricciardo was 1 point behind Olsen. They are now going to have a much larger gap after the unfortunate circumstances in race 1, which means Ricciardo is going to be on fighting form. The only thing that they can hope for now is that Olsen has some sort of accident that puts them far back as well, or just has a bad race, because, I mean, there's overtaking the person you're fighting, and then there's hoping that everyone else behind you overtakes them too. And with Olsen starting second, Jesse, Ricciardo's got a very tall order to get here, but anything can happen on these GT4 Thursdays, and we have seen weirder things. And, well, we're going to return to the grid now. Well, we're going to be seeing how this all unfolds. Jesse Lee, if you're any of these drivers right now, what are you thinking? What is your plan for race 2 here?
Well, I know Michael Redford's plan is to actually start from the position he qualified in. He didn't describe why he started from pit lane, just that he was upset that he did start from pit lane. I still don't know how that happened for the pole sitter in the lower class, but either way, he's on the grid here as we will re-rack him one more time. And before we get underway here, Tim, I just want to say to you and Christian Stricker, it has been an absolute honor and a privilege to be here not only this season, but the previous season as well, to cover GT4 racing. I have seen some things that I have never seen before in broadcasting in this series, both good and absolutely unimaginable. And a lot of memories that we've made in the last couple of seasons here. And it's always sad to see a season end, but I'm glad that we had the time and we had the fun that we did in the process.
Well, Christian certainly liked that comment, calling Jesse cute there, and I wouldn't disagree. Jesse, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here as always. Do every time we come to Thursday, a big smile crosses my face, because I must say these GT4s are an absolute joy to watch. And thank you to everyone who's joined us in the chat as well for all of these races. It's been brilliant to have you here, and we really do like to read your comments, see what you're saying throughout the races. And can I just say, Jesse, we've done 3 GT4 seasons with each other now. Well, I'd say this has possibly been one of the most exciting in terms of racing. We've seen some absolutely amazing battles across these 5 races, and despite the fact that those come out on top on most of them, certainly has been a journey getting there. Of course, had pressure from Verstappen, Boardman, de Havilland, Kozlowski, even Kazmierski. There's been a lot of drivers who have made this hard for Tortilla, so just because they're walking away with the championship now coming to this race doesn't mean that there was a Jones to get there, and obviously a big handout towards it though for doing so well so far. We will talk more about it after the race though. And I was going to say, Jesse, well, actually, what's happening here at Kingston Lee to begin with? It looks like they've maybe got a bit of ahead of themselves, going to have to slow down, return to their original spot. Well, we're going into race 2. We're expecting a lot of chaos here. It's going to be the final race of this season. A lot of drivers will want to clear up a lot of things that have happened across the season. And Jesse, I think personally we're in for a very, very good bit of close racing here. I would not be surprised if from the minute they cross the line, drivers are going to be attacking each other from left, right and centre. Not going to make any comments on anyone just yet because I don't want to give them that commentator's curse, but a very big good luck to everyone who is driving in this last race.
Well, just before we tighten the belts one more time, of course, you may have noticed we are down a driver or two. Ivan has withdrawn from the event. Of course, the situation in Eastern Europe, the deteriorating situation, I should say. And that's all I'm going to say, as I am not a news journalist. But you get the idea, and that is why we are down several drivers this evening. And our thoughts and prayers, of course, with everyone dealing with that ever-evolving situation. But for us, it is time to race one more time in the Thursday GT4 Championship. Who will get the last wins of the season? Can Zidlo do it again? Can Verstappen convert what was an excellent move into a win here for the finale? Can Olsen hold on and win in the lower class? 2x2, 21 cars, 10 rows deep, waiting to take the final green flag. And there it is. The flag is down, and we are racing one more time. Zidlo gets a decent start, but Verstappen gets a decent start as well. Will it be another late braking maneuver? Just about. He's got a nose in there. Will he keep it? Yes, he will. Verstappen still side by side. Now gets muscled out by Kazimierski. Kazimierski wards off Verstappen, and that brings Boardman into the fray. Boardman now fighting for third. Single file again for the top two as Boardman takes his Alpine up to third place. Contact there with the BMW as they all make it single file, and that start was a lot cleaner. And is that, who is that there? Is that Phil Roberts? It is. It's Phil Roberts making a move around the outside as well in the pack and nearly got shuffled out, got back in front of Franken, and now sets their sights on Kingston Lee. Phil Roberts inside the top 10. Excellent job.
Kazimierski is yet again they're facing the wrong way. They've just been hit as well. They're right in the middle of the track, not where you want to be in the middle of the track either. This was saying Kazimierski, and I believe that was Pimlott maybe, was dropping. It looks like Kazimierski didn't have an issue with anyone, just lost it going around the corner there, finds himself facing the wrong way, and is now going to cause a lot of problems to everyone else. I believe Redford actually, Jesse, hit him.
No.
Redford not finding the race start they want for the second race running, will find themselves down in 20th and in the pit lane, will not be continuing this race. And what looked like an amazing week for Redford, it is not going to be that amazing week. Of course, Redford started on pole, will not find it in either of these races, will be, I imagine, coming back next season to try and settle some scores there. But some laps that did go well there. Phil Roberts find themselves up into 8th place. Jordan Daly finds themselves into the top 10. They're going to continue the fight. Tom Bryant here in 12th. Looking at the rear of Schultz as they try to get through on the inside of Kingston Lee. Will have a good run up coming into the first. Of course, as they go 3 wide through that first corner, I believe. You're going to see Kingston Lee's going out top. Tom Bryant going to come through as well. They'll be fighting into this first chicane here. Well, Kingston Lee will have the advantage. They'll be in front going through, but Tom Bryant will be just behind them. I imagine this fight will continue a lot longer here. Well, Jesse, that was a very active first set of laps, and the only thing I can happen to notice that Verstappen ever so close towards it though, but Boardman finds himself in that third place, having to hold off de Havilland for now. I think it's going to be a very different story. Boardman originally in race 1 was taken out very, very quickly. As Olsen looked to make a diving move there on low, will back out just before the corner. But Jesse, race 1, Boardman taken out on the third corner, will find themselves down into 10th, having to reclimb. Boardman now where they want to be in third place. Do you think they're going to bring the fight to Verstappen, or do you think they're going to spend most of their time doing a de Havilland and holding off the people behind?
I think Boardman's more focused out of the windscreen than the mirror at this stake, and I don't see why not. Boardman will be saying that's much more like it, as Verstappen, of course, has not fallen off the back of towards Zidlow yet. And if these two, all it's going to take is a few corners for these two to be side by side, and Boardman's going to be there. He's not that far behind them. De Havilland and Klazowski are sort of not necessarily close together. Jackson is catching his teammate Klazowski again for the second race, and Roberts, who we last saw in P10, is actually up to P8 now. So I don't know what he had in his serial this morning, but Phil Roberts going well up the field here with Jordan Daly in tow, who I believe qualified about 10th, so Daly's up a position as well. But man, my heart goes out to Michael Redford, who has just had a dreadful weekend. You think about the curse, basically, as I believe that's is that Daly going off?
Yes.
That was Daly, yeah. So it was Daly trying to make a move on Phil Roberts there, and it just didn't come off. But luckily, Franken was far enough behind that now you just get to get the tires cleaned off and take another shot at it. But what I was saying about Michael Redford, you just hate it. We saw it last week with Joe Gleason, qualified well inside the top 10 and had no equal in the lower class, and didn't finish either race due to mechanical issues. And today, just luck not on the side of Michael Redford. It's just the curse of qualifying on pole in the lower class. Absolutely insane.
It's happened every week, Jesse. I don't think we've seen a single person start the AM class on pole and live to see the end of the race. I think every single time there's been some sort of chaos, and they've either found themselves trying to just fight back through the pack or just out the race completely. And my heart goes out to Redford there. Your time will come. You had your first podium in this season last week. Well, it looked great today, and it will come. You've done an absolutely amazing job so far this season. Currently watching Verstappen. They've closed the gap a little bit towards it, though. Still trying to get into that space where they can make a move, Jesse. They're not quite that close yet. But if we've seen anything from Verstappen today, it's that close racing. And they're going to try and start doing that now. You can see them on this straight. They're trying to close that gap that little bit more before they get towards the corner. It's going to be too far back to do one of their special moves around the outside. But you can see them there considering maybe doing something on the inside. Going to do the smart choice and decide against it. But they will be able to try and close the gap yet again before they come into the next chicane. Going to go a little bit wide there, coming out of the fifth corner. Not going to be ideal for them. Going to need to really try and close that gap. But Verstappen's got, well, 14 minutes basically to try and close this gap towards Idlo, and we know they'll be able to do it. They just need to try and get those good laps in. Once they're alongside towards Idlo, Jesse, that's when the race begins. I think that's where Verstappen's sort of true skill really kicks in. That's when you see Verstappen start to slow down towards Idlo whilst gaining speed in himself. Olsen here, trying to fight for the lead in AM. I mean, they're doing a brilliant job so far. They've had some great luck today in these races at Imola. They're trying to get the lead in AM. I think at this point it's more of a consolation. Ricciardo, who was their closest rival, has fallen behind the entire pack. They're 5 seconds down. I think today Ricciardo has had possibly the worst possible outcome, Jesse. They got caught up in race 1 in the accident. They've got caught up in the accident in race 2. It wasn't their day, and what was looking initially like a very close set of races is going to end fairly quickly for Ricciardo. I don't think it's even possible now. If Olsen finishes this race, even if they finish in dead last, I think it's over, Jesse. I'm not sure Ricciardo could do anything now.
Well, funny you should mention that. I have been doing the maths, as you all might expect, and I have come to that exact conclusion. As long as they finish the race, it is, I'm pretty confident in saying, bonus points considered for fastest lap pole position. It's impossible for Olsen to lose this championship based on his finish in race 1, and also the fact that we have lost an AM driver or two in the offing here today. So, because of that, I believe Olsen will be your champion in the lower split, as will towards Zidlow, who has dominated the pro field in this championship. But right now, not finding it as comfortable as it often has been this entire season. Verstappen has the fastest lap of the race, the speed juice fastest lap of the race, if you will. And on top of that, Torzidlo, who has been known for driving away, has not done that here today. These two have driven away from Boardman in third, who still has a decent lead over de Havilland. But keep in mind, this was right around the time in the previous race where de Havilland in that 57 Chevrolet started to catch up to the third place car at that time. Will we see a repeat of that? Time will only tell. Neil Pimlott finding it difficult as well as he's trying to chase down Kingston Lee, who themselves is trying to chase down Scholes. All of this for 11th place here.
Well, Pimlott is going to be trying to get through here. They look at the rear of Kingston Lee. Kingston Lee, we've seen do some brilliant defending so far in race one. We'll have to try and continue to do that now, but I'm sure they're just trying to catch up with Schultz ahead and get through. So they've got to be looking in both directions right now, Jesse. They've got to have their attention to the front and also the back. I mean, we've seen so many times so far drivers gone for an overtake on the car in front. The car in front's defended, and it looks like Pimlott may be about to do a move down the inside. Looked like they were going to try and dive one there. Luckily managed to stop just before Kingston Lee took the corner, and Pimlott will have to continue to look at the rear of Kingston Lee here as they come out of the final corner. But wow, I thought they were going to go for it. I was a little scared, honestly, but managing to avoid contact out of the 555 and the 913 car. Well, here comes Daly, here comes Roberts. Daly's looking for the move yet again around the outside of Roberts. Roberts hits too much curb, finds himself unset in the car, and Daly will say thank you very much as they just go straight on through. Now it's Roberts' turn to try and find their way back through Daly as Franken closes in behind. Maybe looking to try and benefit off the situation themselves if they can find their way through Roberts. Pimlott's very close to the rear of Kingston Lee here, but they've got Tom Bryant to worry about. And Jesse, we've seen it a lot today. If Pimlott goes for a move, if Kingston Lee does a great defense, well, Tom Bryant will just take that opportunity and follow straight through as Kingston Lee has a bit of an accident, will find himself losing grip, go through the corner, which will give not only Pimlott but also Bryant the advantage going up onto the kind of straight here. There's a slight kink in it, but we'll pretend that it's a straight. And both of them will be coming through Kingston Lee. Kingston Lee will now find themselves in 14th and have to climb back up. And, well, Jesse, it's what we've seen a lot today. Maybe not, apart from Verstappen, most of the overtakes we've seen happen have been someone's gone for a move, lost grip, and then other cars have just followed through in the gap that's been made. And I think that's been the real advantage here at Imola.
Yeah, a lot of times too, you just fill up somebody's mirror, and that's all it really takes to rattle their cage. And flashing your lights at them, it works on some people psychologically, but just being there, having that closeness, it can change how people drive. And also it creates mistakes because make them lose concentration. And now that Daly has a spot on Roberts. Roberts not letting Daly get away here. This is the wing of Daly's Mercedes looking back at Phil Roberts' Ginetta, and it's been close between these two, and I don't think Daly's going to get too far out in front here, though he does yard him on the straightaway. But that's a Ginetta problem. I know that from firsthand experience as the battle for first continues. We talk about making mistakes. I don't know if Torzidlo is even human, because I think I've seen him make one mistake all season long, really. And even weekends where he wasn't the fastest car on the racetrack, he usually fought his way onto the podium, and still an impressive feat nonetheless. But Verstappen has taken the fight to Torzidlo several times this season, and right here in this race as well. He's got 8 minutes to do the business, and I reckon he's going to have a few shots at pulling off the move. Wide here, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Going to be going to the inside towards Zidlow, very defensive all the way to the grass. Verstappen won't care. He's going to try and go around the long way here, and he's just going to be about doing it. I can't believe it. We saw him do that in race one with the late braking move around the outside. He's done it again, this time in a chicane. But here comes towards Zidlow back again. Doesn't quite have the speed. If I had to guess, Tim, I would say Torzidlo has a little bit more wing in his car than the 747 does, just based on how the equal machinery but how Verstappen yards towards Zidlow on the straightaway ever so slightly, and that might be the difference here. New leader, Verstappen out in front.
Verstappen has looked so comfortable here today at Imola. They've always known exactly what points they can attack at and get that move done safely. How many times, Jesse, have we watched Verstappen go for the move around the outside knowing that they could get it and just push the car to the absolute limit on every single corner? Well, Verstappen's managed to do it today as Torzido is looking to try and get that first place back. You can see them, they're trying to find the way through here. They're not going to be able to do so as Verstappen is just absolutely losing up every single part of the track they can. They've just eaten every single corner. They've gone completely as wide as they can possibly go without spinning off. And I mean, Verstappen's just looking so much more confident here than they have all season so far. And Verstappen's one of those drivers, Jesse, where they have arguably been towards those closest rival this entire time. They've constantly been bringing the fight towards Zidlow since race 1 here. But this is a different Verstappen here today at Imola, Jesse. They have been on it literally since qualifying. They've been continuing it through race 1, been continuing it through race 2, and they just look like a whole new person. Verstappen will continue to defend from Torzido behind. Did have a little bit of a gap for a second there, but Torzido has sort of closed it. But Verstappen, well, they're just going to continue to try not to worry about Torzido behind them. I think Verstappen now, we're just going to see them try and make that gap as big as possible. But honestly, Jesse, even if Torzido keeps that gap small and tries to come back, I think Verstappen will be able to defend that with his life. I think we will see him go to great lengths, and you can see him using up all of the track possible. I mean, arguably, one of the most impressive performances for me today, Jesse, has been Verstappen in the 747.
Yeah, it's very impressive. You will wonder, and we all will wonder, what might have been. Of course, Verstappen was not here for one round, which unfortunately means they missed 2 races. So that's a double dagger for Verstappen. But you will wonder what might have been, because the gap did get away from the rest of the field at that point. But Verstappen looking to make a point here, trying to win this race and say, look, if I would have been able to make all these races, I would have given you a run for his money. And I don't think there's any doubt towards Zidlow's mind that that would have been the case. Like you said, by far and away, the nearest competitor, Christoph Verstappen here, and showing it in the final moments of this championship. Michael Redford joined us from the chat and commiserated his most depressing series of races he's ever had. Says that he went into that corner blind, had no idea the car was sitting there, and just obliterated him, basically. We saw that, so very unfortunate. But Redford, if you're still with us, you have to listen. You are way too talented of a race car driver to let that get you down. You will have your day. I think Tim and I both agree.
Oh, absolutely. Redford, from the start of this championship, has looked absolutely phenomenal. Has had some highs and some lows. Of course, they had a podium last week when we were at Snetterton, Jesse, and they've just done some phenomenal driving. Redford, if you're looking for that race win, it will come. I promise you. I mean, it looked all great for you today, but from a commentator's perspective, how many times have we watched the AM pole sitter not have the race they wanted this season, Jesse? Way too many times. I think we found a new curse here, and it is the AM curse of who starts on pole will not be finishing there, and it's one that we definitely hope to break in the future. Verstappen again managed to put a little bit of distance between towards Zidlow before they get to this first straight, and I think this is basically what we're going to see now, Jesse, until the end of the race. Is Verstappen just try and get that gap to about that 5/10 before every straight, and that's all that he needs to do to stay ahead. I think Torzido's got a good advantage in some of these corners. They look a lot more planted than Verstappen does. Takes a lot tighter lines as well, which can sometimes benefit the exit. But I think Verstappen just needs to make sure that by the time they get to the straight, they've just got the space so that when they get to the next corner again, they don't have to worry about Torzido finding that way through quickly here. As Verstappen, well, they're going to continue to lead this race, has the fastest lap still, and will be continuing to try and keep Torzido on their toes here. Not going to be giving them the lead back easily, that is for sure. Well, here's where a lot of the racing's currently happening. Is Pimlott once again closes down on Schultz here. Bryant's fallen back a little bit, which will give Pimlott a good opportunity to try and make an attack happen here without having to worry about what's happening from behind. Pimlott going to take that corner a little bit too tightly, will not have the acceleration on the Alpine that they could have had here, but Well, they've got 2 minutes left to make a move, Jesse. That gives them about 2, maybe 3 laps if they are lucky. It's not a lot of time to get anything done, but Pimlott is going to be trying to find their way back into this top 10. Been there several times already, and they're going to want to try and find their way back now.
Something else I just noticed, Rob Franken got in front of Phil Roberts there, and that's who Scholes is chasing down. That's Phil Roberts. So this fight for what is effectively 9th place goes all the way back to 12 through the windscreen of Neil Pimlott now. So one false move by anybody, and I think all of these drivers are probably going to end up getting through, or at least have a decent shot of making a move. But right now, the battle for 11th well and truly on. Scholes and Pimlott as the Alpine continues to drive a little defensively and a little slower into the corner, backing Pimlott up, and that's all will Alpine need. Oh, a big squirrely move by Tom Bryant in the background, and that was a good catch.
That was a very good catch, Jesse. It looked very dangerous for a second there, and they went all the way across to the right. Towards Zidlo seems to have had a little bit of a problem. I'm wondering if they maybe messed up one of the corners. It might have been, of course, that they brought a fight to Verstappen at some point and didn't make the move done. Saw them fall back, but either way, Torzillo is now 3 seconds behind Verstappen. And I mean, with 40 seconds left in the race, Verstappen is going to be very happy with that gap. Kingston Lee goes for the move around the outside of Tom Bryant. Well, we saw Verstappen do it. Can Kingston Lee do it? Well, they're looking very good so far. Take a little bit too much carbon. Will hit Bryant on the way out. Both cars go off track here. Kingston Lee reckons that they deserve this. They're going to go back straight back onto the track and are going to continue on their way here. Not going to wait too hard for Bryant. I'm going to wonder how happy Tom's going to be about that one. I'm certainly not too happy, that's for sure. Well, these are two drivers that we've seen a lot of in the past 2 races, Jesse. Jackson and Kozlowski continuing to fight each other despite both driving those Carbon SimSport Porsches. Well, Jackson hasn't found their way through Kozlowski yet. I've seen them do a couple of moves though, albeit very, very safe ones that won't cause too much trouble. And I think Jackson, honestly, they might have that extra bit of pace in them. They just can't find a way through Kozlowski's defense. And that just goes to show how well of a drive Kozlowski has had today. Despite the fact that they maybe not had the pace of others behind, they have had a brilliant time defending. Haviland's found their way through Borman and will find himself on the podium as Verstappen will cross the line. They will be your race 2 winner today here at Imola. Zidler will come in 2nd place, and de Havilland, a 2nd podium here today, Jesse Lee, will come 3rd at Imola. Borman will come 4th, Kozlowski in 5th, Jackson will come in 6th, Fwirt will be 7th, Daly, I imagine, will come across the line 8th, followed by Franken, who may have Roberts to deal with first, but, well, they've all come across the line now, and those will be your top 10. Jesse Lee, was this the race you expected today? I mean, I thought we'd see Zidlo dominate. Well, we've had Verstappen do some absolutely brilliant racing, and everyone else behind as well.
That wasn't the race I thought we were going to get on any account, because that was a very clean race. It pretty much ends the season on a nice note, really. I expected that to be a bit more argy-bargy than it was, but a nice way to end the championship. And ladies and gentlemen, your GT4 champion, Zidlo. But do not allow that to distract you from the fact that Verstappen won this race, and on top of that, Frank Olsen, who came in with a 1-point lead, is going to be quite a bit bigger than that at the end of today. A double winner today, cementing his win in the lower split as well. Zidlo and Olsen, your champions. Verstappen, your winner in the pro class today, with, of course, Olsen doing the same in the lower class. Everybody just bunching up here. And you don't normally see this. Normally people park immediately, but the Carbon SimSport guys, I reckon, are trying to do a photo op of some sort here. And everybody else just sort of almost celebrating the end of the championship. And what a championship it was, Tim. We saw everything this season.
We've had an absolutely phenomenal season here, Jesse Lee. It's been absolutely amazing. You can see one of the Carbon SimSport cars in the background doing some donuts on the track. They're just waiting for everyone else to come through, so they're not in anyone's way. But we have had, Jesse, an absolutely amazing season from all of these drivers so far. Currently got Towards Zidlow doing donuts on track. Well, they deserve it. Towards Zidlow has absolutely dominated since race 1. Jesse, they've looked so comfortable this season. They've done an absolutely phenomenal job. But like I said earlier, it didn't come without its hardships. Verstappen brung the fight towards Zidlow every single race. Wasn't able to find much of it until today, but has done an absolutely amazing job as well. And there are other drivers who have had some absolutely brilliant races that need to be mentioned, Jesse. I mean, we've seen de Havilland, we've seen Boardman, Klazowski, Kazmierski, all of them have been having some phenomenal races, have found themselves in that first place at some point or another. And Jesse, I've just think it's been one of the best seasons for fighting we've ever had. We've seen so many overtakes happen. We've seen so many switches of who's in first every race. And even though Torzillo's been the one to come out on top at the end of it, I mean, it's just been a journey getting there. Of course, the AM class as well has had an absolutely phenomenal championship. We've seen a lot of the drivers on pole getting cursed, but that hasn't stopped it from being close. Olsen will come home on top. They will be your AM driver champion. Ricciardo as well. They fought until the very end. It was a 1-point gap, Jesse, going into this race. That is how close it was between these drivers. And, well, they've wrapped it up now. Ricciardo, unfortunately, not getting the races they wanted, but will be happy that they were in that position to begin with. Olsen, of course, will take home the championship. And, well, it's been one amazing season, Jesse. Thank you very much for joining me in it. And thank you to everyone in the chat. We hope that you've enjoyed this season as well. It's been absolutely phenomenal from start to finish. Well, if you want to get involved in next season, we've got another one coming right up. Sign-ups for the next Thursday GT4 Champ are now officially open. You can find that over on our website. That's RCI racerci.com. Sorry. And you can go to the championship section and you can sign up there. It's going to be another GT4 Teams Championship like we had back in Season 5. There'll be 5 races. Each race is 80 minutes and we'll have at least one pit stop, and you can have 2 drivers per team. So we'll see some driver swaps in there. And that's when you get to see everyone teams up. You see some different paces out of all the drivers. And I'll tell you what, Jesse, last time we ran the Team Championship, it was absolutely phenomenal. It was very, very enjoyable. So if you want to get involved in those Season 7, you can hop on over to the website now and get yourself signed up. I highly recommend it. It is a lot of fun. And we'll be starting at, arguably, Jesse, my favourite track, Donington Park. So personally, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to be brilliant, folks. We did a team championship a season or so ago. It's now time to do it again. You have to have 2 drivers. There is a mandatory driver swap in those races. Like Tim said, it was insane how different the races was. It's endurance style racing in a sprint format. It is absolutely epic. If you're interested in joining, we have a split for you over at racerci.com. Join, and we would love to have you. We'd love to talk about you in a season from now.
We would, and it's like Jess said, it's a phenomenal series, the team series. It's absolutely brilliant. Of course, we can't do any of this without our partners. I'd like to give a big thank you to each and every one of them. RaceDepartment.com, they are your source of sim racing news and mods. AK Informatica, they provide our server solutions. Driver61.com, you can get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code. The link is in the description. You can go to driver61.com and you can redeem it, and they are absolutely brilliant. They massively improve your driving style. I highly recommend them. Fanatec, they are your one-stop shop for the best sim racing equipment. We also have a discount code and affiliate link for them. That's in the description too. Won't cost you anything, and it helps us with things like server costs. Simracing.gp, they are a community-based sim racing. If you don't want to do public lobbies, they are where you want to go. It's absolutely free. You can get teamed up with other drivers and you can just drive your heart out without having to worry about the normal problems of a public lobby. So that is definitely something you should check out if you are interested in these championships. Well, Jesse, it's been an exciting race today, and I do have to mention, this is not it for the rest of the week. We will be back again tomorrow, Friday GT3 tournament. They'll be wrapping up their final race tomorrow, That will be Jesse Lee back with Mike Jones, I believe. They'll be commentating on what will happen on Friday. Then we'll be back on Saturday, I believe, for Night Owl. Correct me if I'm wrong now. I'm not wrong. I've just looked at the schedule.
That is
We will
correct.
be back this time for Night Owl. Jesse Lee and Mike Jones yet again will be commentating on that. That will be on
I think that's
Saturday
Mawson
evening.
and me.
Is that Mawson? See, these are the things
Yeah.
you have to warn me about in advance, Jesse.
Listen, we have a schedule. Sometimes it changes, but yes, it is. Unless I'm very much mistaken, it's Ryan Mawson and me. We're going to try something this Saturday that we've never done before. Ryan Mawson's going to be running the cameras. He has done that before, but he's never done that and commentated at the same time. I'm going to
Oh.
give him a good ribbing. You know how Night Owl works. It's just a bit of fun. You're going to want to see it. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all the things for that, and come see me put Ryan Mawson through an emotional mangle.
Like, I'm going to be there in the chat. I can't wait to see how this all turns out. We've got, I believe, Monday we will be back. Yes, we will. That's Ryan and maybe John Dalton. They'll be returning for the Asia Masters series, so you can see how that turns out next Monday. Wednesday, we'll be back with the Diamond Drive Cup. That's Jesse and Nate on the comms there. They will be showcasing what those drivers can do. And I must say, Jesse, the Diamond Drive Cup, absolutely phenomenal how it has transformed across the seasons we've done. I absolutely love tuning in on a Wednesday to watch them drive. So if you want to catch in on any of the seasons that have just been mentioned, make sure you hit the bell, you like, and you subscribe, and you won't miss a single race here from RCI. Well, Jesse, what a day we have had today. I'd say that was probably the best possible way to wrap up this championship. We had some absolutely brilliant racing from the championship leaders. It felt like a lovely end to the story that we have been weaving so far across these 5 races. And I've got to say, I couldn't have asked for some better racing from some of them out there. What a day.
Yeah, it's just been a beautiful championship, hasn't it? It's kept us guessing in the booth as well. And just when you think you have it all figured out, you don't. And we're set here with our heads scratching. We're supposed to be the experts, Tim Peck, but even we were surprised by a lot of the racing we saw out there today. Well, that is just about it from us for this season. We'll be back in some capacity in one season's time, but until then, it's been an absolute honor and a privilege to be a part of it. And a special congratulations to Tord Zidlow, your winner in pro, and Olson, your champion in the lower class as well. Tim Peck, take it away. Take us out of here.
Well, I'd just like to say a quick thank you first to you, Jesse Lee, for joining me, and Christian Schicker, who's done an amazing job broadcasting. They're showing you exactly what the aim of the track looks like right now. Couldn't have done it without either of you here. You've been phenomenal. But for everyone else,
What a
if you want
legend
more
that Christian
GT4
Stricker
action, what a legend indeed. If you want more GT4 action, though, you're going to have to wait until the 10th of March, and then we will be back with Season 7. Of course, it's a Driver Championship. I hope to see you then. And for now, have a great week.